Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm really excited that you're here today because there is a product in the holiday catalog that has my heart. No, it's not the copper foil, although that is a contender. It is the brand new white gift boxes. This is a box that is perfect size, 3x3, and it has a beautiful acetate overlay that goes over the box. They're completely white, which allows you to decorate them however you choose. And I came up with this. This box is so pretty. I don't even think you can really appreciate it just looking at it. I'm really excited to show you how I did some stamping on the acetate sleeve as well as decorated the box itself. Keep in mind that the holidays are coming, so this can easily be adapted to any theme, as well as weddings and showers. So let's get over the stamp table and let's get started. Here's a close-up of this gift box. The tag and the sequins just really play up the beautiful paper. I'm going to show you how easy this is actually to create and put together. The white gift boxes come 8 to a package for $8, and that's the US price. Love the size of this box. It's not too small like for jewelry, but it's just like perfect for a favor as well as a small sized gift. The beauty is not only do you get the box, you get these amazing acetate sleeves. Now they're a thick construction, not like regular window sheets, and I'm really pleased with them. They are designed to slip over the exterior of the box, which is what I'm going to show you today and how I decorated it. But the box itself is already die cut for you, so all I'm going to do is just kind of stretch it out and bend in the score lines that are already created. Going back and forth on these, so they're a little bit flexible. So I want to kind of bend them in both directions so that they'll lay really nicely once I assemble it. So I'm going to do the top and the bottom. There is a glossy finish on this box. I don't think I would recommend stamping on it. I think it's not going to turn out well. I don't believe they were even designed to be stamped on. It definitely would smear and it would not dry your ink. So here we have the box. The best way to remember this is tabs in, then the ugly flap, and then the bottom flap is just going to pops down inside. So that gives you that interlocking closure, which you can see here on the inside. And then obviously you would fill it before you would want to seal it, but we're just going to pretend we've got something great inside of there. Now the box itself, I thought would be perfect for a piece of designer series paper. Today I'm using the Blooms and Bliss designer paper. This is in the annual catalog. Just absolutely love the colors, and like with all Stampin' Up! Designer papers, they are double-sided. The paper, surprisingly, is a little shy at the corner, but because I cut it 2 3/4 inches by 12, I'm going to leave a little bit of white at the top and bottom to make that seam look purposeful. So I'm going to make sure the seam falls in the back. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to line this up here, and I'm just going to kind of crease it as I go along. This will help give me a little bit of a template to follow when I go to put the adhesive on. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is take my bone folder, and I'm going to go over those lines just to make sure I have a good crease around the corner of the actual box itself. So there really is no measured score lines. I tried that once, didn't work out so good. So just use your box corners to create those little areas for folds. Snail adhesive adheres beautifully, so there's no reason to use anything else. I'm going to start by putting some on the end and then down a couple panels. Now you're going to want to be generous because you don't want it to buckle along the way. All right, so remember I'm going to start back here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge, and I'm leaving a white border at the top and the bottom, and then I'm just going to simply turn it sideways, and I'm going to press. Turn and press, and then turn and press. This will give you the fourth side. All right, that was easy enough, huh? Okay, so the next step is going to be a notch. I decided that it was really difficult to get into the box because this little piece of paper from the border is actually covering it up. I used the 1/2-inch circle punch, and I just opened up the lid of the box and the flaps. I do this so I think you can see it. I'm shimming it down inside of there, and I'm just mimicking the dimension of the box itself, and I'm punching. So that gives me a little bit of a notch for my finger. You can see I missed a little bit, so I'm just going to go back in and then just adjust this a little bit to make that notch a little bit bigger. So now there's a great spot for you to open the box. I also cut a piece of designer paper from the same series, same paper, 3 inches by 3 inches. And this is going to go on the lid. And again, I'm going to be very generous with my adhesive around the outside dimensions of this box because I want to make sure it doesn't lift. 3D projects are going to get handled quite a bit, so I want to make sure I'm generous with my adhesive. So this is going to be all the way end to end. And I'm just adhering that here. And I'm going to flip and rub from the inside to make sure that it's stuck on there really, really well. So now we have the entire box covered. Isn't that easy? I mean, in itself, it's really very pretty. But here comes the fun part. Here's that sleeve I told you about. This was designed literally just to slip over the box. Pretty, just like that, and it gives it a really nice sturdy base, and it really is pretty for presentation. There is a seam on the box where the acetate comes together, so I'm going to be really careful that this seam will line up with this where the designer paper has met each other. So I know that this now is going to be my back right corner. So my stamping would be done here on this panel. So I'm just going to kind of straighten this out a little bit so that I have a semi-flat surface for me to stamp on. I decided to use a greeting from the Layering Love stamp set. This one says, "Enjoy the little things." I thought that was great for a small gift box. Whenever you stamp on acetate or window sheets, you're going to need a solvent-based ink. That means StazOn. Now, it's a slippery surface. I'm not going to lie to you, so you're going to want to take your time and you're going to want to work slowly. I have been told, although I haven't tried it, that if we make a mistake, we could use a little rubbing alcohol and it'll come right off. I bet that would work because this is solvent-based, and I would imagine you'd have to do that right away. So here's my stamp all mounted. I'm going to ink it up generously on my StazOn ink pad. Looking to make sure I've got good coverage. It appears to be. And I'm working in the center of this panel. So I'm going to manipulate the stamp the best I can, and I'm going to come straight down and I'm going to press. You're going to want to make sure you're not rocking and you're not wiggling, otherwise you're going to get a really blurry image. And then you're going to lift. So there we go. It's going to need about 5-10 minutes for it to dry, which is perfect because then we can go about finishing the box itself. So I'm going to set that aside. Very important to clean your stamp off immediately with StazOn. I have a stamp and scrub off the camera. It's outside of my reach, but one side is wet, one side is dry. In addition to that, you're going to want to use StazOn Cleaner. StazOn Cleaner looks like this. It's great for the solvent-based ink and helping to remove or reduce the residue that's left on your stamp. So I've left the stamp wet, and I'm just going to use the felt rubber tip, and I'm going to rub it right on the stamp. And you can see how it's turning like a muddy black color, and that's because it's releasing the ink from the rubber. And then on my scrub, I'm on the wet side and I'm scrubbing off the ink, kind of like doing the dishes, and then on the dry side, but you can see that's already a marked difference. Solvent-based ink can transfer to your other dye-based ink pads. You're going to want to make sure that you properly clean them before you put them away. I thought the box needed a tag, so I went ahead and created one using the same designer series paper. And this is cut 2 inches by 3 1/4 inch, and the scalloped tag topper punch is perfect for this. This is going to make a beautiful tag. The 2-inch width slides perfectly up the track, and then I'm just using the heel of my hand to get that beautiful scalloped top to create the tag that we're going to stamp and embellish. This designer series paper has a beautiful coordinating stamp set, and it's called Blooms and Wishes, and this is what I'm going to be using to decorate my tag. I'm going to use the Memento ink on the greeting, which says "For You," and I thought that was kind of appropriate for a gift box, so I'm going to stamp that right here at the top. I'm then going to use the rich raspberry ink pad to create some color right on the designer series paper. I've chosen this image from that same stamp set. I'm going to ink it up. Rich raspberry is a very strong ink, so I'm actually going to stamp off a layer of ink on my scratch paper just to tone it down a little bit. And then I'm going to layer this here in the corner of my tag. Again, from the same stamp set, I've chosen a smaller flower, and this one I'm going to ink full strength. So I'm going to let this one be dark, and I'm going to stamp this off to the side here. So now we've got a little dimension on that pattern paper. From that same stamp set, there is a collection of leaves that you can use and stems, and I've chosen this one, and I'll be inking that in the Sahara Sand ink. And I'm mimicking the colors that are in the Designer Series paper just for coordination. So I'm going to ink this up, and I'm just going to add some stems along the outside of this tag just to give it a little bit more realism. These are scraps from the Designer Series paper, and I'm going to use the Blossom Bunch Punch to create some punched out flowers. So I'm going to start with the larger one here, and I wanted to use it in this pattern paper, and I definitely want a smaller one as well. So I'm manipulating the designer paper so that I can get both of these at the same time, and I'm going to punch. This paper is the same one I chose for my tag, and again, just for coordination purposes, I'm going to choose the middle size flower. Now I'm going to do some assembling. I keep small pieces of dimensionals in my stamp room. This is literally just the full-size dimensional cut in half. I find that they fit better on a lot of my projects. So I'm going to use a full-size one on this larger flower here, and I'm going to mount that over this one. And then the medium one, I'm going to use a half size. And that one's going to go over the top of this one. And then another half for my small flower. So I'm just building this up to create interest. So there's some depth to this. And that's going to go here. So that's really it for the tag. And that's going to end up getting mounted here on the top of my box. Now on this one, I used the Project Life corner rounder to corner round the edges. And I think this one I'm going to leave straight. Let's talk about the bow. This is the Blushing Bride satin ribbon. It's so pretty. The great thing about it is it's actually printed on both sides, so you don't have a wrong side to this ribbon. I'm going to cut off about 5 or 6 inches and hold it to the side, so that's going to help tie my bow. I want to make a multi-looped bow, so I'm going to use all 4 of my fingers to create some depth. I'm going to start with a small tail here to hang on to, and I'm using my thumb to secure it, and I'm going to go around here a couple times. Now, how much you go is completely up to you. You can keep going around and around, sliding it off, and I'm pinching it in the center. And then I'm cutting off the end. I'm taking this piece that I cut, and I'm going to tie this in the middle to cinch this piece of looped ribbon to actually make both sides of my multi-looped bow. And I always like to put a knot in it so that I know it's not going anywhere. You're going to see when I flip it over that I actually have double tails as well now. So I'm going to just pull this through. You're going to have to manipulate it a little bit to get it to lay the way you want. I also cut a piece of sequin trim. Now there's a couple things you can do. You can actually add it through the loop before you tie, or you can add it to the bottom with a glue dot. For the sake of today's video, we're going to add the sequin trim with a glue dot to the bottom. So here's my box. I'm going to flip this over, and I am going to add a dimensional to the back. And I'm going to lay this on an angle. Here's our pretty multi-looped bow. I'm going to use glue dots. And because it's rather large and it's a little heavier than normal because it's going on a 3D project, I'm going to use a couple of those. And I'm going to end up anchoring it here. But before I do that, I almost forgot. We've got to put those sequins on. So pretty. Makes that shimmer all come together. So I'm going to mount that here near the top. And then we're going to mount our bow. Now I did put the knot down. If you prefer the knot up, that's completely fine. I don't know about you, but I keep a pair of really nice scissors in my stamp room that are just for ribbon. And everybody in my house knows you don't use those on anything else but ribbon. So that's going to give me a really nice, what I call haircut on the edges of my bow. So again, I'm just going to manipulate it so that it lays the way I want. To bring in the coordination of the silver sequin trim, I'm going to use the metallic enamel shapes. I'm going to pull off one of the larger ones, and I'm using my paper piercing tool because they have a glue dot already on the back. And I'm going to lay that right here in the center of my flower collage. Now I'm going to leave these out for a second because I'm going to see if my sleeve is dry, the one that we stamped with the stays on. Now it looks like it might be a little bit damp. The great way to check is to literally turn it upside down on your grid paper and just lightly press to make sure that you don't have any residual ink. Yeah, I guess it is dry. So we're going to push out the ends so that we can get our box to slide in here. And we are just going to shimmy this down inside. Now keep in mind, my box is empty, so it's not as stiff and heavy as it would be if it was filled. Now I'm going to use one more of the metallic enamel shapes, and this time I'm going to use the silver heart because I thought it would be perfect right here on top of that stamped heart. So there we go. We have our box. We have our multi-looped bow. We have our stamped greetings. This one has the square ends on the tag, and this one is rounded. Which one do you like better? Why don't you leave me a comment and let me know. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Make sure to head over to my blog and check out the online classes tab. I've got some great fun things for you there. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.